Hello, everybody. It's Friday. That means it's time for another topic of the week. First off, normal preamble. Last week's topic on the Warhammer gods. A lot of great responses in the comments. Good stuff. Go back, check that out. As always, that video will be linked down below. A lot of the interesting discussion was on the Chaos gods and on like their nature, what they are, how important they are, what we people think they represent. I think that no matter what I ultimately got from the discussion around that topic is that one, they are a hugely important feature of that world and what makes that world's narrative compelling. And two, they're, despite the fact that they have these almost like set natures, at the same time, they have a lot of gray in them. What I saw in the comments was people look at each of the sort of chaos gods and see a lot of different things in them. Some people see them purely as sort of dark reflections of the worst part of humanity, and that's probably true. But there are also other traits and qualities or lenses through which they're viewed that make them unique and interesting to, or perhaps even abhorrent to all the people who look at them. So there's a lot of really great comments, and I really appreciate everybody who left good feedback and all that sort of thing. So cool stuff. As always, check down below for that, and of course, links to all of last week's video responses as well. This week's topic, since we had Steve on the show this week on Warhammer Weekly, and we were talking about his upcoming tournament, Holy Havoc, which is a narrative tournament, it got me thinking about narratives in games. And so I thought, what a great topic for this week. You know, narrative play, the idea of constructing a narrative around your army. A lot of people would probably say they engage in some level of narrative play, but here's what I want to know. How important is narrative play, having narrative elements to your war game, to you? Now, before you simply answer, really important or I love it, let's go a level deeper. Okay? Because I think that the devil's really in the details on this one. I almost always have some kind of narrative around the games that I play, but often, to be honest, when we're not playing a campaign game, it's quite shallow. That is to say, often the stories are like usually I play 2-on-2 games. The teams can be rather random. You know, we could have like some orcs paired up with some Stormcast or with some Bloodbound or you know, Core Knights are getting together with Slanesh, just something that's anathema in the world, right? And yet, here it is on the table. But we're still always we always construct a little narrative, a little story about what's going on. It's sort of ex post facto, right? And I think that's where the actual difference lies. Not just in, do you consider the narrative elements of the game important, which is certainly one question I would love for people to address, both in the comments and videos, but also how do you attach narrative elements to your game if you do? Do you set them up beforehand, you know, through the use of campaigns, scenarios, the nature of, you know, do you name all the characters in your army and have them act accordingly? And as such, you choose certain units because this named character would make these choices. You know, this character does like these units and doesn't like these units, or prefers to fight in this way and not in this other way. In other words, are you willing to sacrifice, let's call it tactical acumen, perhaps, either in a pre-game list building phase or during the game itself, like, oh, my character is bloodthirsty. So even though I know making this charge is going to actually put me in a bad place, right, I'm still going to do it because, you know, I'm playing this guy and this is this particular Lord of Khorne and he's blood for the blood god. It doesn't matter from whence the blood flows or whatever, right? Because I think there's a lot to unpack there about the way people see the game. And I think there's a spectrum here. A lot of times we like to make this kind of false distinction between like competitive players and fluffy players or something, as though that you just sort of like it's a light switch you can flip on and off. I think that's obviously nonsense. I think almost everybody incorporates, you know, some element of a narrative into their play, even if it's just at that moment and it's ex post facto, which I always think is the most interesting thing. Do you use the narrative afterward to then justify and explain what happened because of the dice or because of the tactical decision or because of whatever? Or does the narrative happen first and drive your decision making. So I think I very much look forward to people's thoughts on this and how they see the narrative interacting with their choices during the game. So there you go. That's this week's topic. Narrative play in your war games, and how important it is to you and how you use those narrative elements. As usual, if there's any video responses, they'll be linked down in the description below, where, as I mentioned, you can find last week's topic, where all those video responses are linked as well. Thank you very much, everybody. Appreciate you watching, and as always, we'll see you next time.